Welcome to the Action Playbook. I'm Jason Fox.
And I'm Coach Robin.
And we're helping leaders take action in life and business. Oh, okay, this has been difficult. I've been sitting here trying to get this on multi-track so we can use AI and make our lives easier to bring you more content. But instead, here we are, as per usual, episode 29, a bit of a Q&A today.
Indeed, yeah. We put it out to our members, the Action Members group, to see if there was any topics or any questions that they might have that would make a good conversation on the podcast. And we've had some doozies come back, some good questions.
I hope we're qualified to answer them.
Yeah.
And I haven't even checked what they are, so I'm in the deep end here. So let's give it a whirl.
Off the cuff. One of them is directly for you and you alone.
Oh, my Lord.
All right, so the first question comes from Tony Snow from Shared Workspace. And he says, I've been thinking, it's all good having checklists and SOPs, which is standard operating procedures, right? So it's all good having checklists and SOPs and even getting staff, and even get staff in assisting with the development of them. But then to get them to follow them and be part of the solutions is always an interesting dynamic. There's this element of culture and empowerment and elements from a lean perspective, yet still steps or daily items are missed and frustrating for all, and it doesn't make it fun.
Listen to Common Unity's latest episode with Josh Cox. I mean, this is an important thing to remember, is that not everyone is motivated by the same thing. So we can give you the SOPs, or we can go, hey, here's some career development and so forth, but that might not be what that person's actually searching for, or it might be not be the language that they understand when you're giving them the instruction. So getting to know the actual person that you're trying to get on board, because I know Tony's got a number of staff, so he'll have to do it to a multitude of people, but they're all going to have a different language that motivates them. And once you understand the person and you can speak to them within the right language, it's going to help you guide them to where they need to be within the business, but also where they're trying to get to in life.
Oh, that's a great point, actually, Jason, because we all have our own hot buttons, yeah. And it's not the same. It's not always money, and it's not always acknowledgements. It's different for every person, and then you've got communication styles as well. So understanding how they prefer to be communicated with is a good way to at least get that engagement and buy-in from that team member.
Yeah. So I mean, let's go back to what you coach with, is the disc profiling, right?
Yeah.
You did the disc profile on myself. I read it and went, fuck, if people just spoke to me like this, it would be a lot easier. You know, I brought it up multiple times with the wife, and she's very descriptive, and I'm like, bullet points. Yeah. Sweet. I have no idea what you just told me. Just tell me the 3 key points and I'll go do it. Versus here's a 74-page manual on how to.
Exactly.
And that come across in my strengths test that I did on that podcast as well. It is actually a very interesting listen, in my opinion, because probably it was directed at me. But if you have to work with me or know me, you'll probably go, that's why Jason is the way he is, for good and bad.
Yeah.
So if you can understand that per staff member within your business, then your SOPs and stuff that may be quite confusing to them may come back in line, and they might work towards your end goal of a successful future with your business and for your team.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 other elements to this challenge that Tony's facing. The first one is delegation, right? So delegation is an art. It's not just the case of saying, hey, Jason, can you please go and do that, right? There's a process involved with delegation. In other words, you've got to make sure that they understand what it is expected of them. Expectation alignment is so key, which leads me to the other one. The other aspect that I think Tony's facing, which is accountability. Just because you've delegated something does not release you of the accountability. You still need to get feedback to make sure that it's okay. So with the delegation, one of the key things that I learned in my business was, first of all, never assume it's going to be done because you've delegated it. There's still some responsibility on me as the delegator to just follow up and make sure everything's on track. And then the other part of that is also to make sure that they are aware or that they feel that they can come to you if there's a problem. So I would always say, I trust you. I know you can do this. If there's anything that is going to prevent you from achieving this, come back and tell me, so that they always knew there was a feedback loop open to them.
Yep.
And the accountability, I just couldn't get away from this. We had to give everyone their KPIs. So KPI is a key performance indicator. And we'd keep it down to like 3 short. So this is a tip for anyone who is facing the same challenge. 3 key strategic objectives that we wanted them to achieve. And they had to score how they were doing. And then when you sit and do a review, performance review or an annual review with them, that you've got those scores that you can go back to. And so that was the one way that I was able to get, across a team of over 100, for everyone to be clear about their objectives, what they needed to achieve in terms of my expectations, and then also to be able to give that feedback and say, I got a 7 out of 10 for this one, and I got a 10 out of 10 for that one, I got a 3 out of 10 for that. And then that sparks a conversation to say, okay, right, it just raises that level of accountability that each team member has, because we want to empower people. We don't want to micromanage.
Yep.
And KPIs is a great way to make the team members conscious of the expectation.
Yeah, going back to what you just said, though, you said let's have an annual, roughly the annual review. That's a terrible way to run a business, having an annual review. It's become a measure of business. Hey, guys, really disappointed what you did 4 months ago. And, we're gonna address this now, 4 months later, because it's your annual review. Like, that's not how you address, you got a window of probably 7 days if something's happening that you're not happy with. And then you can't really bring that up again. If you've just let the water go under the bridge, it's backing up, the dam's backing up, there's more wood clogging into that hole, whether it's the staff, the culture, there's stuff going to be going on, and it needs to be addressed at the forefront of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Hey man, far out, that key account is going to be so good for this business. I want you to be the forefront of that account. I'm really happy with you. I can see your progression going far in this business. Or, hey mate, you can't speak to our customers that way. You can't just leave it till the annual review. So your KPIs and stuff like that, as the manager or the director or whatever your role is, if perhaps you need to be addressing these things more consistently. Hey guys, well, let's just catch up once a month for 10 minutes. What are your wins and losses for the month? Doesn't have to be a huge thing, but what are your wins and losses? Are you on track? Are you working towards our vision?
I couldn't agree more. It's almost unfortunate that there's this culture of annual review. A very good mate of mine and a hugely successful entrepreneur in his own right. He a progressive, he had a very progressive business with a modern approach to leadership. And what he did was he had KPI forms printed, like a little booklet, for each person that they had to update daily. So every day they had to fill in the KPI form and hand it in. And, as progressive and as happy as everybody was, they knew that was the one thing that they had to do. So he got daily feedback on how people are doing. And it wasn't there for disciplinary reasons. It was there to see, well, who do we need to help? How can we help you? How can we get your scores better? And that feedback on a daily basis, it's going to take the business forward.
Yeah, and a lot of that time, they might be down because something's happened at home. Their grandmother may have just passed or something, and they haven't told anyone within the business, and you're seeing this over 3 or 4 days, and you're like, hey mate, you're all right, like come in here. I see you're not performing where you usually are, like what's going on? Yeah. Oh, that's horrible, how can we help? Mate, take the rest of the week off. Go sort out that stuff, whatever it might be.
That might not be the best advice. Anyway, yeah, I hear you. Incentivize.
It doesn't need to be incentivized, but you're going to see if through those KPIs that that someone's down if you're looking at them more frequently.
And find out what support they need. Yeah, I agree. So just wrapping this one up. So I liked your communication and hot buttons, finding those and then speaking to them in the way that they want to be communicated with or at.
We've got a podcast on that, communication.
Yep. The accountability and the which comes from the KPIs and what was the other one?
I don't know. Rewind it.
Yeah, so it's really about aligning expectations, making people accountable, finding their hot buttons and communicating with them the way they want to be communicated with.
Yeah, and I guess the other one was the not an annual review, like touching them more frequently.
Yeah, 100%. And incentivizing is not a bad idea either, by the way. If you're putting those KPIs in place, and you know their hot buttons, that was the other one. If you know their hot buttons and you've got the KPIs in place, reward them with whatever their hot button is. It's a good way to get people to consciously buy into what you want done. Yes. Let's move on.
Okay. Round two.
The next one, another great question here. Steve Kawidi from Kawidi Roofing, another one of our Action members. How about fair and reasonable forms of discipline? This is something I always struggle with, being on a personal level with my whole team. On one side, it's easy to bring things to attention. On the other, it's a relaxed atmosphere that tends to not be taken too seriously sometimes. I'm keen for some suggestions. Great question, Steve.
It's a hard one. Start with a fire walk, get all your stuff out there, walk them on the hot coals, and then tip the coals on top of the ones that aren't performing.
I'm actually going to mute your mic.
Okay. More PC version. Yeah, always a difficult one, right? He's got a fairly young team of guys that are probably has some similarities in character and stuff, I would assume. I haven't met his entire team. And that becomes probably a fun culture of the boys going out on site and doing certain things and, potentially let's have a beer on a Friday night. We are all mates. I'm sure a lot of them probably hang out together because it's pretty common within trades that your workmates become your best mates. So yeah, how do you approach that when it actually comes to affecting the business? It's a good one.
So I had some experience with this. When a business starts out and it's really small and a family type business, where everybody knows everybody, what everyone gets up to on the weekends, and there's a lot of social engagements that happen in the workplace, right? Because it's a small group, so it's easy to share that information and that knowledge with each other. But then what happens is the business grows. So you can crack a joke when you've got two people working for you. You can crack a joke and they know you, they understand you, and they get your sense of humor. But if you've got a team of 30 or 20, that relationship, there's distance that gets created. Now, whereas, fun-loving business owners don't see that straight away. We don't realize that straight away. We think we're still one of the crew. But because that there's that slight pull away, the distance that is created, what was acceptable before suddenly isn't. You crack a joke at someone's expense and it's not funny. One person laughs, but the person that it's aimed at doesn't find it funny because they don't know you as personally as what it was when it was a group of 2 or 3. And so I had to learn in my business, I had to learn that I had to create that sort of gap. There has to be a gap, right? For that very reason, for the reason that Steve's bringing up here. There needs to be a bit of space where the business owner has to withdraw from being one of the guys or one of the crew, one of the people, and just create a line, a solid line, and everybody understands they don't step over that line, or they're going to have a chat, or you don't step into their space either. So creating that gap it still means you can be friendly and you have to be. And you have to encourage people, you have to support them, you have to know them, and you've got to care for them, you've got to do all of those things. But then you just got to pull back and say, right, at some point, I always assume that at some point you are going to have to discipline that person.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to do when it's one of your best mates, one of the guys that, you crack jokes with. And then suddenly it's like, hey, come to my office, I have to talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's a very healthy practice just to create a bit of space for the business owner or for the leader in a business to create a bit of space so that there's that room for discipline to take place. And what often happens is you don't have to use that space. Often people, when they understand that space exists, they know where their boundaries are and they kind of stay within that. But when it's all friendly and jokey and, nice environment, we think it's nice as the owners. We think it's nice, but they actually don't. They see you as the boss, the leader, the owner. So
it's always intimidating, right? It's always intimidating to that person. It's like when you growl at your kids for coming home late or stealing your car or something, and they burst into tears and slam your hallway door and then slam their bedroom door and all that sort of stuff. That closity is almost what comes into your business. It's like, oh, you don't normally react to me like that. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to walk out the door.
Yeah.
Versus if there was always just a bit of a fine line of, hey, mate, you're the boss. I'm really proud of what you've done this month. It's awesome. Hey, mate, this is the third time this week you've backed the truck into the building. That's not normal.
Come chat with me.
Yeah. You need to have that fine line. And it's important to remember as the business owner that it's not that one person that you are trying to feed. You're trying to feed your own family, and if you've got 30 staff, 30 other families. If that one person's jeopardising the overall goal of that business in some way, it needs to be addressed again. Yeah. And sooner rather than later, as per previous comments.
Yeah, and consistently addressed. The same for everybody. You can't just, Joe's been with me for 10 years.
Yeah.
He can get away with it because he's earned that right. No, he hasn't. It's the rules are the same for everyone, right? And that's what happens when a business grows.
Yeah.
Those lines that were very blurry before suddenly have to be extremely clear and consistent.
Because strangely enough, people talk.
Yeah.
So if you've dragged one person over the coals and not the other, well, guess what? It's not going to go down well.
No. Yeah. So my suggestion, Steve, just create a buffer, create that line in the sand. You don't step over into what's their territory. They don't step over into your territory. Keep the relationship good, fun, and caring, supportive, but just know what the line is that you can't overstep.
Hope that helps. And number 3.
This one's for you. This is another one from Tony. So
why are you picking on me, Tony?
It's a good question. I think a lot of listeners will be interested in this. So from your perspective, Jason, what do lenders look for to approve funding and finance for SME, that small, medium business? Is working capital worth it? And what do you need to make the process easier and in the favour of the business? How to prepare for business funding, growth and scalability?
They're almost a podcast each. First of all, everyone, whether you're in business or not, comes down to credit score. Credit score is hyper important. I've had financiers ring me in the last couple of months a couple of weeks because arrears are higher than what they would have been 12 months ago, and said, if someone's got a credit score from here, don't even submit the deal to us. It's a no. So how do you keep a clean credit score? Credit scores are affected by business, but everything always comes back to the guarantor, so it's your own self. So it's not just ensuring you're paying your car finance, your truck finance on time. It's also ensuring you pay your power bill, your Sky bill, your phone bill on time. It's ensuring that you don't have unarranged overdrafts. So I've only got $300 in my account, but a repayment for $500 went out and it bounced. all of these things affect your credit score. And then there's a window. 1 month arrears, not ideal. But if that's come up once on your credit report in the last 24 months, probably not too bad. That's coming up every month, and maybe it gets 2 months, 3 months. There's some stuff you didn't pay for a few months. What that's doing is it's painting a picture that you're in hardship. And if you're in hardship, currently, based off live data that we all get to see now, very unlikely you're going to get a loan. So that's, first and foremost, that is what's looked at.
Look after your own credit worthiness.
Yeah. And understand it.
Right.
If you need to ask more, please DM me, and I'll clarify some stuff, or let's have a conversation. 2, obviously, arrears. You don't want, if something goes, there's arrears, but default, you didn't pay and it's gone to collections, very, very bad. Very bad.
Blacklisted. Oof.
Yeah, look, some things do slip through, but if it's finance company, very hard. But if you have gone to a default, and you've then paid the default off, shows you're in good character. Like, everyone comes up against the wall. Like, we're all going to have some form of hardship or some financial issues at some point in our life. And if something makes it to a default, and you then pay the default off, it's showing that you honoured your obligation for that money. So maybe we would give you a second chance on some finance. Maybe not the same financier, but someone else might go, you know what? We'll play on this ball pen with this person, versus they just walked away from $5,000 from the other financier, and now they're asking us, why would we get our $5,000 back? Like, who's to say we're going to be any different? It's a very straightforward conversation. So just keep that stuff squeaky clean, and it not only helps you get approved, but it helps you get approved at better interest rates. It is scored. The interest rates are profile dependent. Secondly, being equity backed helps a long way. So are you a homeowner? Yes. That really bumps you up the list on, okay, this is someone we'll give some money to. Doesn't mean we're going to use your home as security for the average loan, but it means you've got a fallback position. If you've got a home and you have $500,000 worth of equity in it, you're probably not going to let not paying a $20,000 car loan ruin your ability to buy another house, or potentially even lose your house. So chances are you'd sell that $20,000 car and you'd keep everything clean. So the people that have generally got to home ownership are looked after a little bit better, because historically they are the ones that actually sort their finances out if there's an issue. So that helps a long way. And that could be the difference. Say you're in business and you want to buy a vehicle, that could be the difference of no deposit or 20% deposit, just owning a home. So these are all things why you come to your broker, because we understand this and we understand what each financier's criteria is at that specific time, and it's constantly moving. I've had emails today of more rate increases. So what are you chasing? Next part on that, cash flow. Is that the question?
It's so what do lenders look for? Just before we move on to the next part, though, something that I see is towards the end of the financial year, there's some expenses that get pushed through, right? Because you don't want to pay too much in tax. So, some of those expenses creatively get put through at the end of the year. But it makes the business less profitable. That's why we do it. And that's, it's more tax efficient to do it that way. But isn't there an impact when you're applying for lending, when your net profit doesn't show, a good result?
So 100% profit and loss in a business, net profit, the bigger the net profit, the easier the lend. Plain and simple. Especially if that net profit is after your final accounts, which includes all your depreciation and your interest charges. Because your depreciation, your interest charges will always be any outstanding finance. Sometimes you'll look at a profit and loss and people haven't loaded their depreciation schedules and their interest into it. So we've got to look at those current repayments or obligations at the bottom of that profit and loss, because that's a EBITDA rather than a full net profit. But yes, those things have massive implications. So if you're saying, hey, I want to go and borrow $100,000 and you lumped a whole lot of expense into your business, and that shows now your profit and loss is unaffordable, we'd need to really mitigate that to get that across the line. So come to us, what was it? Oh, actually, our R&M's higher because, say, it was a truck and we didn't want to pay too much tax, so we rebuilt that engine. And here's an invoice for it, proving that, we've done that engine towards the end of the year. Okay, cool. So we could potentially subtract that $70,000 back out of your R&M, which would show you as a cash profit and loss. Net profit, sorry, brain fart. That would... Shut up, you.
It's so nice to be on this end.
Yeah, that would definitely help. We can mitigate those things, and sometimes we might need some forecasting. Well, this is where it goes back to, I've got a business that does that. Your accountant will help with that stuff. Potentially, you may be able to do some of it yourself. But yeah, as long as you can mitigate where the income's coming from. Again, it's not always the profit and loss we're looking at, because if you're growing your business and you can prove that maybe you've got a contract and it's going to bring X amount of revenue to it, you forecast that out, well, that's painting the picture of why you may need to buy these assets or whatever it may be. Does that answer the question?
Yep, definitely. So the second part of that question was, is working capital, and I presume he means is borrowing money for working capital, worth it? And what do we need to make the process easier and in the favor of the business?
It's by far the hardest thing to raise money for, because working capital is generally unsecured. So it's like, hey, I've got a new business and I want to employ more guys, or we're going to go in this direction, I want $100,000. And the finance company says, sweet, but it's your word against ours. What's going to prove that you're going to pay that $100,000 back? Like, it sounds nice in theory, but where's our security position? So to make it easier, what do you have? Property, and they will lean on it. If you've got a commercial building, if you've got a house, you'll probably get some of that borrowing. They'll lean against your home, and they'll bang a couple extra couple extra percent on top of your retail mortgage rates, because it is business and they see it as riskier. But that's really where you see cash flow lending come from. There are options. Prosper, for example, we might be able to raise you some finance for year to year type terms. They are more expensive, so they're like overdraft or credit card rates. You might be sitting around 20% interest. They are possible. That all comes down to bank statements. They look at a 12-month bank statement, and they'll want to see great account conduct. If you're showing more money comes in than goes out, they'll probably lend you some money. If they look at that 12-month picture and they see $40,000 more has come out than what's come in, it's probably going to be a hard no. So your business does need to be in a growth trajectory. Another option is debtor financing or factoring, where they actually take security over your debtors. So, if you go to the bank, they're pretty stingy on overdrafts. They might give you a $20,000 overdraft. That's all good and well. You pick up a big contract, or you're in a growth period of your business, you're employing more people. All of a sudden your turnover's gone from $20,000 a month. Now you're doing $50,000 a month, but you're struggling to keep up with wages because you're having to pay them before you get paid on the 20th. All these things happen. Invoice factoring, you can draw down 80, sometimes 90% of the invoice as you charge it out. So I'm charging this out on the 5th of January. I know I'm not getting paid till the 20th of Feb, but I can draw that money straight back down to ensure that all my staff are getting paid. And as my business continues to grow, I can lean more on that. So I've gone from 50 now. 6 months later, I'm doing 100,000. Well, guess what? I can actually draw $80,000 of that. It's a great tool for a growing business because it grows with you. It has a cost to it. It also has a benefit to it that they'll generally take the money, pay you the remainder. So they're chasing up your arrears. Hey, you haven't paid on the 20th, mate. You owe us. Where's your money? So there is that. That's a big part of business that a lot of people struggle with, so they will take that on. But there is a real cost to your business too. But I don't know, you can look at it if it cost me $20,000 a year for that facility and I was able to grow and they actually made sure the money came in and I didn't have to write off any bad debts, well, maybe that's money well spent. What it is, though, is very hard to get out of. So if you grow within that, you're going to hope to grow yourself into a position where maybe you do have some equity-backed finance that you can eventually pay that out, write it off, get it off your books, and then start trading on your own, because it is a bit of a trap where people get stuck in it, and I very rarely see businesses get out of it.
So, I mean, everything that you're saying, it sounds to me like, lenders generally are risk averse, so they need confidence. They need to be able to see, that you're on the right trajectories, that you've got some assets behind you that, can cover that loan if need be. And the other one that I was thinking of as you were talking is contracts. If, I've been in a position where we were awarded a contract, but we needed to invest up front. So I took the contract to the bank and we got an extended facility available to cover us as a sort of a bridging option.
Yeah, which I touched on before with the forecasting and stuff.
Yeah.
I can do a forecast and say, hey, I'm pretty sure my business is going to get here next year. And they go, cool, what's that based on? Sun's come out, got a new government. Yeah, we're going to get there.
I think it might work.
Yeah, versus, hey, I've just got this contract. It's worth $300,000 of revenue to the business, and it's going to cost the business $180,000 to service that. It's because of this. I need to employ 2 staff members and 2 vehicles to be able to do this contract, whatever it might be. Okay, cool. That's the net profit. Well, it makes sense. You're probably going to be able to pay that debt back.
Yeah.
So paint the picture. It's like your mate going, hey man, have you heard about this new Ponzi scheme? What do you reckon? You give me $100,000, I'll give you back $500,000 in 6 months. Like, nah, bro, nah.
If it's too good
yeah,
to be
yeah.
true, it probably isn't.
Yeah, and again, that's what we do. Like, you can go to the bank and you can go to 10 banks and get frustrated, like I do for a living, or you can come to me once, tell me your story, and let me portray your business in the best light. You got to think of a broker as like a lawyer. I want to know everything. Like, don't let me go to a finance company and find out that 5 years ago you had defaults with them and they ended up repossessing a vehicle that's now dropped off your credit rating, because they haven't forgotten. So we're wasting both of our times even going there.
Yeah.
Tell me everything. I'm like, okay, cool. This is probably our best avenue forward for these reasons.
Yeah. But forewarned is forearmed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
100%. Excellent. Jason, I think that's a wrap for us. Thanks for those questions. I think let's put it out there, right? If somebody has a question or an issue or something they would like us to talk about, why don't we
cover it off?
Yeah.
So questions down below. Love to get a comment on the Facebook post, or you can DM us. Link in bio. There's lots of ways to find us, or even send us a text or an email. Just get us the questions. There's no questions too silly, and we'll see what we can put together. This is valuable to you.
Exactly, right. This is what we want to do. We want to bring value to the people listening. So if there's anything in particular somebody wants to cover off, let's do it.
Nice. Get out there and take some action.